I'll start with one who actually we've talked about a few times already on the show. We had you on I think back in January, maybe when he moved clubs or something along those lines. That is Porto winger Oskar Pietuszewski. Um, Really exciting young player, Gonzalo, like 18 years old, left winger, made the move to Porto for just 8 million euros in January, if I'm not mistaken. He already has a market value of 25 million euros. His market value has already risen since joining Porto, but you suggest him for this episode, so that means you expect him or you think he's going to do even better this season.
Yeah, it's because Oscar, he had like an immediate impact on the team when he arrived at Porto in January. I think he was only 17 at the time. I don't think anybody will or was expecting him to be a regular starter in the first months of his time here in Portugal. But the truth is that not only he was, and he's a regular starter in the team, but also he was very important to Porto winning the title last season. I think Porto made an almost perfect winter market in January, winter transfer market, but Oscar was probably the best player they bought in January. I think he did great, and he's very young. Like I was saying, he was just 17 at the time. He's now 18. So because he's so young and he played so well for Porto in the second half of the season, last season, his market value obviously increased a lot. Like you said, he has already a 25 million euros market value, which is considerably high, I would say, for a player that was in the Polish league last year and it's now in the Portuguese league. But he has already been linked to clubs like Bayern, Borussia Dortmund. So I think he's one of those players that we are going to hear about him a lot in the future. He's probably going to be linked to other big clubs. But I also think that it's important for him to stay at Porto this season. And we actually didn't see him play this season yet because he's injured or he was. I think he's going to be able to play the next match probably, but he couldn't play against Torriense in the Portuguese Super Cup. He couldn't also play in the first match day of the Portuguese league. But yeah, we are only in the beginning, and I think he will have a lot of opportunities. And I don't think he's going to lose his place in the starting 11 because of this. I think the coach Francesco Farioli trusts him a lot, and he's probably going to be one of the most important Porto players this season.
Yeah, he was also, I just noticed there, also heavily linked with a move to Arsenal this summer. I believe that was before they signed Solis, the left winger, although you never know. But as you said, it seems unlikely that he'll move this summer since he only joined the club 6 months ago. And I think that's something we have to really focus on here. I think people are used to seeing Porto develop young players and young talents kind of sprouting out of seemingly nowhere and turning into kind of top stars. And obviously, Porto have a great history of developing young players and selling them for huge fees. But for this kid to come from Poland, of all places, really, it's a very unusual career move to go to Portugal and already be a starter for Porto. Gonçalo, that strikes me as quite a unique story in terms of Porto, because obviously they're used to Portuguese players, Brazilian players, maybe Spanish players, but here we have this young Polish player who's making a name for himself at Porto and very quickly demanding a starting position in the team.
Yes, Porto usually, especially in the past, because last year's I think Benfica and Sporting made a better job selling their players. But I remember when Porto used to buy a lot of players from Colombia, Argentina, and then sell them for high values. So Porto knows how to do this, but usually they don't buy players in the Polish league. But and I think this was one of the most important things for Oscar to so he could adapt very well to the Portuguese league was that Porto has other Polish players in the team like Kivior, former Arsenal player, and Bednarek, who was in the Premier League as well before coming to Portugal. So I think that was very important for Oscar, for such a young player to be in a foreign country, to have those two Polish colleagues in the team. It was very important, and I think that the clubs like Porto, as I was saying, usually likes to buy players in South America, but I think the clubs should keep an eye on this kind of opportunities. If they saw this player like Oscar with 17 years old playing very well in the Polish league, I think it makes sense uh, to risk it. To It's a risky move. It was a risky move. But I think it makes sense. And like you said, he was bought by or for 88 million euros, right? So nowadays is not that high of a fee. So I think it was a good business for Porto, and he's doing very well.
Yeah, absolutely. So his market value right now is 25 million euros, but as Gonzalo has alluded to, it wouldn't be surprising if that increases dramatically this season. And we might be back here in 12 months' time, Gonzalo, talking about him moving to Arsenal or Bayern or
Who
Tottenham or
knows?
whoever else. It's always the way, isn't it? And that's exactly why we do enjoy doing this show.